Hey guys, today's video is about childhood trauma. So as we're going through life as children, the first kind of thing that we'll experience with kind of temperament and things like that is what they call the terrible twos, in terms of childhood upbringing and things like that, where children have tantrums, they'll scream, they'll shout to get their own way. And as children progress, they start to learn to interact with other children and human beings, and they learn that they're not the only person on the planet. And then they'll move through to learn about order and learn about reward and, how to structure their lives. And as they get older and older, they tend to get better and better until they reach teenage years, and that's when they become kind of young adults and they start testing the boundaries of what they can do and everything else. And they go back to a more kind of educated level of tantrums and things like that. And then obviously we move into adulthood. Now, along that journey of growth, what happens if you experience a traumatic experience where something is overwhelming, it's a shock, or something happens? In my work as a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist, is what happens is people get stuck at that time. So whenever something like that triggers them, they go back to that behaviour. And one of the things that I do working with body language, I write for the Daily Express as a body language expert. I know the papers as well, I have done. And one of the things that I express to people is when people regress to that stage and they become back to that child, their voice changes to that of a child, their posture changes to that of a child. So if you're experiencing, especially on lockdown and things like that, times where you feel overwhelmed and you're having these kind of expressions or whatever else, there's two different things you can do. The first thing is you can reduce your levels of stress, and that will take you back into homeostasis, and you won't go back to that kind of unless you're being triggered by something that reminds you about but the best thing is to actually go back and heal the traumatic event. And I've created a technique called the blast technique, which I believe is the fastest, kindest and most efficient technique for healing childhood trauma, adult trauma, PTSD, anything like that. So any event, I call it trauma, and some people say, well, I was pushed over at school, or I was made to stand up and read in front of the class and I was humiliated and embarrassed. How can that be a trauma? And I said, well, it is, because when you were a child, you didn't have any resources, you weren't a very big person. So the effect it had on you was quite overwhelming. And the fact is, if you're still thinking about it now, it's a trauma. It's, I will say it's the same as a lion is part of the cat family. It's, a trauma is a trauma. So one of the things that I can do is we can really quickly go back with that. We don't even need to use hypnosis now. I do all eyes open trance work with Blast. And I teach people how to do things very, very rapidly. Most of the clients I have, I see for one session, we heal that and we move on, process it, and it actually processes it in the way. So it's not a confusion technique, it's not a scrambling technique like a lot of people use. It doesn't scramble the memory, because I don't think that's helpful, because if you were attacked and then you basically go into a situation you're going to be attacked and then you trance out, that's not helpful. So what we do, we process the memory and we preserve all the learning around it. So the mind updates it, so it protects you for the future if you're in a situation like that. And it's really fantastic. We're having some amazing results. We've had lots of stuff in the media about it. And yeah, so it's it's working really, really well. But it's just, if anyone is out there and they're experiencing these things and wondering why they're regressing, like some people will say, you're behaving like a child, and they are. That trigger from that trauma back then takes them right back, because the situation reminds them of that, and because it's unresolved, they behave in that same way. And traumas get stuck in time. It's really, really odd to see, because you see adults and that, and then when you get into that situation, they get boom back into that situation. So if it's something you're interested in learning as a therapist, go to blast-technique.com. If you want to work with me and heal your own traumas and things like that, go to ndhypnotherapy.com and I'll be happy to help. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Love your comments and feedback as normal, and I'll see you soon, and stay safe.